wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they had all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them sorry, and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world." Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself.
Thank you so much. That was perfect. Right, so we all know the story, right? So it is the feeding of the 5,000 men, it says, right? Am I correct? Yes, so 5,000 men. Probably there were more women and children as well. Yeah, so in Indian terminology, one wife, 2 children, will make it 20,000 for now. Yeah, just an assumption, don't go absolutely, right? So this is a very famous story where Jesus came in, he said, he sees all the people coming, he had compassion over them. And, when we see, this is a story which is recorded in all the 4 Gospels. And it says he had compassion on them. And he said, what shall we give them to eat? And Philip, probably he was asking Philip, he had his disciples all around him, like have so many volunteers, they're probably taking care of all of you every day, right? Probably Karan and Tarang and Kevin being the leaders, saying this is what we need to do, this is what we need to do. So probably Jesus also had a kind of a setup, and he asked Philip, what shall we do? There are 5,000 men, where can we get the bread? Right? Philip, being the business-minded he is, right? I think some of you are data analysts, probably Excel, Power BI, Tableau, right? And then calculate everything and then say, even if I spend half year's wages, we're only going to give them a bite, right? I don't know, he would have done this many dinars I get per day or per week, and then say, these many dinars I will get, and then say, Jesus, I think even half year's salary will only give them a small bite. But if you read it very carefully, it says in the verse there, right? Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may have a little bite. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon, brother, said to him, probably we're going ahead. I'll slow down, right? And then if you read above, Jesus, when he was asking a question, he already knew where the bread would come from, right? So, but then he still asks him. And then we see another disciple, Andrew, right? Andrew says, there is this little lad, right? First surprising thing is, Jesus knew that he did not have bread. Probably he also knew he did not have the money, but he still asked him, where shall we get the bread from, right? He being a local, he would have said, here if we go, it is cheaper, right? If we go there, it costs so much. We do an analysis, right? He said so many parents are here, you might be taking them out as well this afternoon, probably this evening. Might be thinking this is where we will go. We will get good food, probably very economical, right? So many plans, some people are laughing, so I'm assuming, they've already planned, yeah? So that is how, I think Philip has calculated all of that and then set it up. And then, Andrew, another surprising thing he does, he knows that there are 5,000 people, right? But then he says, okay, let me take the 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Lord, this is what we have, right? And generally, what do? It's a little boy you go sit down, eat in a corner, at least you are full. We'll say nothing is there, right? But then, it's very surprising that Andrew brings it and says, Lord, this is what we have, right? And then God says, make the people sit down in groups. And then, he says, I will bless it. And then we know what happened. So he blesses, he makes them sit down 50 people each group. Then each group sits down. They are being served as much as they want. You know, if you read the Bible, it says they gathered and filled. I'll need to go back. Then make the people sit down. Now there was so much grass in the place, so the men sat down in number about 5,000. Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to the disciples, and the disciples to those sitting down, likewise of the fish. So when they were filled, they said to his disciples, gather up the fragments, which means, they did not have a little bite, right? It means they did not have little bite. They had filled, like it was a full meal, probably a family pack biryani, right? They were full and they had to pick it up, right? It was not a little bite that they had. All these people had their fill, and it says, God said, gather up the fragments so that nothing is lost. Therefore, they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets full of fragments of loaves and fishes. That is the story of the 5,000. Yeah. Is that it? And you might be thinking, this guy is really fast. He's ended the sermon, right? Well, this is the story, but then you might be asking, what is it for me this day? God has done 2,000 years ago, has done something. How does it apply to me? There are a few lessons that I've drawn from this story, right, which applies to us. There are about four lessons that I've written down. The first one is this, that people are needy, right? People are needy people. We all have needs, right? Is there anyone who doesn't have a need? I don't need anything. No one? Okay, everybody's like me then. Excellent. Right, so the first lesson that I've drawn is, people are needy. There were about 20,000 people. Luke 9:12 actually captures this one, right? And they were hungry without a place nearby to buy food, right? But then, if you look at it very carefully, Jesus, while he was asking them about the bread, Jesus was not just concerned about their physical hunger. He was also worried about their spiritual hunger. Where do we read it? In the same chapter, John chapter 6. Read 26 and 27. If you read 26 and 27, it says, Jesus answered them and said, most assuredly I say to you, you seek me not because you saw the signs, but because you ate of the loaves and were filled. Do not labor for the food which perishes, but for the food which endures to everlasting life, which the Son of Man will give you, because God the Father has set a seal on him. Right? So God is talking about something everlasting. The food that we eat every day digests and goes. Then again you need it, but then this food that God is talking about is a spiritual need that we all have. Right? We all hunger spiritually. And, the first lesson is, while we all have our physical needs, physical desires, we are also spiritually hungry. We need spiritual food, right? And if you open Psalms 72, verses 12 to 14, it says, for he will deliver the needy when he cries for help, the afflicted also, and him who also has no helper. He will have compassion on the poor and needy, and the lives of the needy he will save. He will rescue their life from oppression and violence, and their blood will be precious in his sight. So, people are needy, and God is a compassionate God. He wants to provide for each one of us. He did not just say, because if you read the other Gospels, disciples actually gave him a wonderful advice. They said, send them away so that they can buy something. Right? If you read Luke or Matthew, you will see that these disciples are telling Jesus, send them away before it is dark so that they can go into the market and buy something. But then Jesus said, no. we will need to provide something, right? So God was a compassionate God. You and I, when we go through trials, when we go through something, God knows it, and He feels compassion. He wants to provide for you, right? Sister said yesterday night she was lying down thinking about what is happening. I don't know what is going on, sister, but then God is compassionate God. He understands your need, right? The first lesson that I drew from this passage was people are needy, right? They were following him, from place to place, and they were going after him. But now the second point is this, right? Before we go into the second point, we need to understand something. We as congregation, right? We are not just sitting here absorbing, but then we are also workers in His kingdom, right? How many of us believe actually we are workers in His kingdom? Yes? Yeah. Yeah, this time these people agree, these people don't agree. But that is all right, we're making a balance out of it. Yeah? So, this is what I believe. The church is a house of God, and we are His children. And this is my Father's house, right? We all have a responsibility in it. Yes? Yeah? Okay. So the second lesson, this is what I've drawn, right? In themselves, people are inadequate to meet anybody's need. Philip, Andrew, in themselves, they could not meet the need of the people, right? Someone said, let's go and buy. Somebody just brought 5 loaves. So each one probably could have gotten a small piece like that, which was no match for 5,000 people, right? People, second lesson is, people are inadequate in themselves to meet others' need, right? If you and I are supposed to be His children, trying to serve somebody else, in ourselves, with our own strength, we are inadequate people. Yeah? If you tomorrow have to go deliver something, you see people in need, in yourself, in myself, we are inadequate people. Yeah? So disciples definitely were concerned. They were giving suggestions to Jesus. They were saying, send them away before it is dark, because probably the shops would close off and they can't buy anything, right? We are all probably concerned, each one of us sitting here, we're all concerned about the community. We're concerned about the people around us. We're concerned about the church and its needs. Each one of us are concerned, but then probably we're also thinking, what can I do? I only have little, right? What can I do? I only have this, or probably I don't have anything at all to give to the church, right? So, second lesson that I've drawn is, that we in ourselves, we are inadequate people. Philip, we see that Philip, he was doing a lot of calculation, right? He said half a year salary. And he was like, probably you might also be thinking, Karan would have announced that, we're doing something like this. This is what we're doing. And then, we're in need of so much. Probably you would have said, okay, this much I get a month. This is my rent. This is my food. This is my need. This is how much I can give, right? And if I have to meet that need, I need at least a year's salary, a year's savings, or probably 6 months savings or 3 months savings, right? But then the lesson that we can learn from here is, that we in ourselves are inadequate people, right? We can't provide the needs of people by ourselves. So then, what do we need to do? Just relax, let Jesus do it. Yeah. So, because we are inadequate people, right, we need to know certain things. If you look at John chapter 6, verse 6, what does Jesus say there? But this he said to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Right? Jesus asked him in the 5th verse, where shall we buy bread that these may eat? But in 6th verse it is, but this he said to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. We are inadequate people, but we need to know that God is in control, right? We might be surprised, sometimes we might be shocked about a situation, but God is not surprised. He knows not just the past and the present, but he's a God who knows the future as well. So he's not surprised by any situation, right? You might have lost something. You might have lost someone in your life, right? You might have lost a job. You might have lost some money somewhere. But, you might be surprised, oh, how did this happen? I did not expect this, or I did not plan it. But we need to know God is in control. He knows the future. And when we are aligned with his plan, right, he has something better for us. His plans are never to destroy us or harm us. Right, so the first lesson that one of the lessons that we learn is Christ is in control of every situation. Right, look at Proverbs 19:21. What does it say? Proverbs 19:21. Proverbs 19 and verse 21. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. Right? You and I can have multiple plans, in our offices, those who are in, how many of us are IT actually? I failed to ask. IT people? Yes. And the remaining people whose hands are down, which fields are you in? Homemaker. That is a very important job. They don't have holidays, leaves. IT people have 5 working days, and then in between you have so many holidays as well. But especially IT people would understand, or maybe homemakers also will understand. If plan A doesn't work, we have plan B. Plan B doesn't work, plan C. Right? For some of you, it is crisis management. Some of you, it is business continuity. Yeah? Yeah, yes, people understand what I'm talking. Homemakers also, probably you put salt more, and you know how to manage it, you know how to control it. You have a plan B. Okay, if salt is more, you add this into it, right? So, yeah. So there might be many plans that we may have, but it is the Lord's plan that prevails because he is in control and he knows what the future is, right? And another thing that Christ-centered one is, Christ is more concerned about us and the people around us, right? Matthew 11:28. Let us see Matthew 11:28. What does it say? Matthew 11, verse 28. Come to me, all who weary and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Right? Disciples here were only worried about the physical hunger. Right? When Jesus asked them, what shall we give them? They were only thinking around the bread, the fish, the chicken, the mutton. Yeah? But God here was worried more around, more than the physical needs, right? All those who are, the version that I have, it says, all those who labor and are heavy laden, come and I will give you rest, right? So you and I might be working and might be worried about people, even our Master, who is our Father in heaven, he is also concerned, right? We might only think few things based on our mind adjusts, and our mind can think through, but God, in his mercy and grace and in the power that he holds, He thinks much wider, right? He's more concerned for us. He wants to give us rest. He knows where we are laboring. He knows where we are struggling, right? Probably some of the struggles that you might be going through, you're not able to speak up. Probably some of the areas you're not able to share with pastor as well. How can I go and share this with him? What will he think, or what will people think, right? In India, it's, if you go to Delhi and all, this common saying is, char log kya sochenge, right? We don't know who the char log are, but we are worried about the char people. Yeah? You know, God is more concerned about us. You might not be able to share it with anyone, but God knows it. He's the one who searches our heart and who knows us, every intricate detail of us, right? And He cares for us, right? And then the next point is the point that we were discussing. In ourselves, we are inadequate people. But Christ is not limited by our inadequate resources, right? You and I might be inadequate people, right? What you and I can do might just be little. But then, Christ is not limited by our resources, right? You might say, I can only give 5%, I can only give 1%. Some might say, I can only give 10%, right? It is not just about the money that I'm talking. It is about our time. It is about our resources. I think we were in a leaders conference. Our sister came and helped us with the Sunday school children. It was a real blessing because parents didn't have to worry about the children. And just so that parents aren't worried, she was sending pictures every now and then. Every 30 minutes, parents would receive a picture and Karan would say, oh, this is what the children are doing, don't worry. Right? So it is the service, everything that we do, in ourselves, when we limit our service based on our resources, what we need to understand is, Christ is not limited by our resources. He's able to do over and above what we can think of. Right? Philip, in verse 7, was doing a lot of calculation, and he was saying, definitely impossible. He was like, Jesus, what nonsense are you talking? Absolutely impossible. Half year salary. Right? You and I might be thinking, when there is a need, Karan, what are you thinking? My boss will never allow me to take a leave like that. I can't really get out of here. I don't have the money, or I can't really do it. What is my talent? Right? I'm not even talented. Right? Maybe he would have asked you, come in, can you help us in the worship? Can you help us do this? Yeah. You might be saying, Karan, do you even understand what my talent is? I can come sit in the back and then get back home. I cannot really go forward. I was like that. When I joined NBCC, I used to pick up the last chair somewhere in the corner and then say bye to him and leave. Yeah. I wouldn't talk to anybody as well. And, well, this is what I feel. God always picks us up in our weakest areas and makes those things as our strengths. Right? For me to stand in front of at least 10 people is going to be like a scariest thing ever. I would give some excuse and not attend that place at all. I would say, Karan, look, I'm not feeling well. Can you handle it? That was a kind of a person I was. Right? Now I'm able to stand before you and speak. I feel God makes our weakest things as our core jobs or requirement. Right? So what I'm saying is, you and I might be limiting ourselves and saying, this is not something for me. Definitely not my cup of tea. Right? But God says, don't limit yourself. This is what I can do. Right? The next point that I have, how many points did we do just now? We first learned that people are needy people. Yeah? Whatever their condition might be, they might be the disciples of God, still they don't have it, they're needy. Second one is, people are inadequate in themselves to meet others' needs. But then, from this we learned that Christ is in control of every situation. Yeah, what else did we learn? No, forgot. Christ is more concerned for people. Yeah. And the last one that we learned was Christ is not limited by our inadequate resources. Right? This is the one that I wanted to bring to you. God doesn't just meet your needs, He abundantly supplies. Right? You might have been praying for 1,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees. God is not just meeting your needs, He's going to provide you abundantly. Right? If you read towards the end, what does it say? Verse 13 onwards. So when the people were filled, He said to His disciples, gather up the fragments that remain so that nothing is lost. Therefore they gathered them up, filled 12 baskets full with the fragments of loaves which were left over by those who had eaten. Right? He doesn't just meet your needs, but He abundantly supplies. Right? How many of us believe that He abundantly supplies? Yes. Yes, He abundantly supplies. God is a compassionate God. Right? And He has paid an overpayment for you and me. Right? If you look at Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 12. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 12. What does it say, Deuteronomy? The Lord will open the heavens, the storehouse of His bounty, to send rain on your land, and in season, and to bless all the work of your hands. You will lend to many nations, but will borrow from none. Amen. Right? When God provides, He's going to open heaven's gates, and from His bountiful provision, when He provides you, He says He will send rain on your land. Right? Our brother Dilip spoke about rainy season coming to an end. Right? But the rain that I understand from here is the blessing of God, and the land is our life. Right? The rain that he's referring to here is the blessing, and the land is our life. Right? And whatever we do, He's going to bless us in such a way. How is He going to bless us? He's going to bless us in such a way that you will lend to many nations, but will borrow from none. Right? So God doesn't just barely meet our needs, but He is a God who will abundantly supply. Right? Over and above what you want. Right? God wants to use us and our inadequate resources so that we can meet the needs of the people abundantly. Yeah. Through our inadequate resources, God wants to meet the needs of others abundantly, which means He will have to provide you over and above what you asked or desired for. Right? Our God is a compassionate God. He wants to provide for you. He wants to give you. He wants to bless you so that you and I can be a blessing to many around us. Right? God is saying, I'm going to bless you in such a way that you will borrow from none, but you will be lender to many nations, right? I do not know people from how many different places are here, right? When you are going to go back to your societies, your communities, right? There might be needy people around you, and you might be thinking, what can we actually do for them? I'm not talking about the physical needs, because Pune is a rich city. People earn handsomely here, right? But then the spiritual needs, they are struggling through, right? They do not know. People are in search of happiness, are in search of joy and peace, right? Which our God is promising us. My joy I give to you is what the Lord says, right? And in Philippians 4:19, God says like this: my God shall supply all your needs according to his riches, not according to our riches, not according to our pastor's riches, right? Not according to the church's riches, but he's saying, my God shall supply all your needs according to his riches in glory by Jesus Christ. Right? In 2 Corinthians 9:8, it says like this: God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. Right? In all things, at all times, having all that you need, abound in every good work. Right? So our God is a God, and the famous verse, Psalm 23, verse 1, it says, Lord is my shepherd, yes, and you shall want everything. You shall not want, right? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. It means your resources are never going to go dry, right? When you follow this living God, when you follow this God who is promising you many things, right? When you follow him, he's saying that I'm not just going to barely meet your needs, but I'm going to abundantly provide so you can lend to many. But what? Lend to many, borrow from none. Right? I remember in my childhood, you know, we did not have much. Sometimes we used to borrow, and then go into a lot of struggle, right? And from that day to this day, God has turned it all upside down for us, right? God has provided us so much that we don't have to lend. Sorry, we don't have to borrow, but we are able to lend, right? God can use such people who have been people who are lending things from others to people borrowing things from others to people who would lend things to others, right? I do not know what struggle you're going through this morning and what trials you're going through, right? God has made that 5 loaves and 2 fishes into 12 baskets full. What does that mean? What does that mean? Does that mean anything? Just the leftover? It is like 1 basket for each disciple who did not bring anything at all. Yeah? 12 baskets full is like 1 basket full for their homes, for the disciples, right? Who came with nothing, who said, oh no, we will have to go here, we will have to go there. We just have 5 loaves. When you and I bring our 5 loaves and 2 fishes to God, and when he blesses it, he doesn't just bless it to the people, but he also blesses in such a way that the disciples are able to take back, right? So I do not know what your 5 loaves and 2 fishes are. I do not know whether you have submitted to God or you just saying 1 loaf at a time, I will have it until it is over, right? Or I don't know if you're saying, Lord, this is what I have. Can you bless it and use it? Right? If you give your 5 loaves to God, God is going to use it. Use it in such a way that you will, not just you and your family, but the people around you, but the people whom you work with, people whom your friends, and all of them, God is going to bless. And He's going to bless it in such a way that there's going to be things that would be remaining for you, right? And His promises have been coming true, right? We at Harvest have a prayer group, right? And we gather every Friday for a time of prayer, and we see God answering prayers, and He's continuing to answer those prayers, right? And God is providing for people. So if you follow God, He's going to He's going to provide for you in such a way that, you will lack nothing, right? When you, when God came into this world to lay down His life, right? He just did not pay for your sins. He has made an overpayment, right? He has made an overpayment. And He says in the same chapter, John chapter 6, if you read verse 35, what does verse 35 say in John chapter 6? Can someone read John 6:35? When Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry. Whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry. Whoever and who believes in me will never thirst. Right? Have you tasted that bread of life? These are some of the questions that I want to leave with you as I close it. Right? In all your equations, like Philip had his own equations. In all your equations, are you counting God in it, or are you counting your own resources? Proverbs 3:5 says like this: trust in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding. Yes, when we take out God out of the equation, your resources will always be inadequate. Not just for others, but for yourself as well. Right? Are you counting God in your equations? Is my first question to you. Second question, are you carrying the heart of Christ? He cared for the perishing, right? And those who are lost, He came to give care, right? Are you carrying that same heart? If you and I are called the sons and daughters of Him, we ought to exhibit the characters of God, right? If you and I are called sons and daughters, we ought to exhibit His characteristics. Yeah. Is it, let me explain this, I think it is a little lost. You've gone for marriages when you were young, right? Yes. So did somebody come and tell you, you look exactly like your father, you look like your mother, right? Probably some say, he's a mixture of the grandfather, mother. They know the whole, tree, family tree. So they calculate it. So if we are their children, if we are His children, we will exhibit their characteristics. So are you exhibiting His characteristic? Which means, are we carrying the heart of God? Third question that I'm going to leave with you. What are you doing with your resources? God has given you the resources. He's blessed you with something. Are you feeling ashamed of your resources and saying, this is all that I have? What can I do with it? The little boy wasn't ashamed of his 5 loaves when he gave to the 5,000. What are you doing with your resources this morning? Don't feel ashamed. Though it might be small, God is able to do amazing things with it. The last question: are you willing to submit yourself to be used by God? Yes. Can we submit ourselves? Whatever we have, our life, when we submit to Him, you will not just have abundantly, but your people, your families, your community, your society is going to be blessed as well. When they see you, they will know that whom you follow. Right? In John chapter 6, verse 35, it says like this: I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never hunger. Whoever believes in me will never thirst. Right? And if in the same chapter, if you go down to verse 53 to 58, it says like this: most assuredly I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Right? So his body was broken for us. His blood was shed for us. Right? On the cross, his body was broken and his blood was shed. Right? Anybody who partakes in it will have life and everlasting life. Right? As the elements come to you, right, volunteers are going to bring their elements to you. Just pray in your hearts, Lord, this is my resource I bring to you. Because when you're partaking of this table and the cup, what you're saying is, Lord, I am one of yours. You're grafting yourself in his body. Right? You know grafting, you would have read in your childhood. Right? You're grafting yourself and saying, Lord, make me like you are. And then this is a new covenant that God is giving us. When we eat of the bread and the drink of the cup,